Hi, I'm Nicole.
I'm John.
And I'm Jen. Welcome to Talk Murder to Me.
Every week, John's going to tell us a story that we've never heard before
while we drink. Let's get started.
And here comes the news update.
All right.
I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I thought it'd be really appropriate for our serial killing podcast. There was recently in the news an actual serial killer that got caught. And I don't want to make jokes about this because it's there are family members involved.
Right.
But I do want to get the facts. So it's pretty interesting. All right, so and I'll pull it up on the computer so you guys can see too.
That's what I was going to ask.
The Golden State Killer?
Yeah, I sent you guys that in a text last night.
I don't get text messages. I'm off the grid.
That's
Sorry.
so weird. I didn't even look at it, but I was heading to work when I saw it. But
Well, we have this mind thing going on.
We do.
Well, yeah, we just part out. But anyway, okay, go. Continue.
Okay, so the Golden State Killer, right? He just got caught, and he was actually a police officer.
The killer was a police officer?
Yes, this guy that got caught, his name is Joseph James D'Angelo III. He's a former police officer. He murdered 12 people from 1976 to 1986. So he went on a 10-year murdering spree as a police officer, probably wearing his uniform, and he has raped at least 45 women. And I was reading...
Wow.
There's a few books written about him, and his, the thing he would say when he would break into the homes with his mask, he would say, "Shut up or I'll kill you." And there's actually a book I think it's like, shut up or I'll kill you. That's a book. It's about a victim that happened to. And anyway, this guy just got caught. Thank God. He's 72 years old. He's a balding old man. And if you look at
How'd they catch him?
DNA. And not only DNA, the great thing about the podcast, right? The reason they really caught him, it was DNA, but there was a book that was recently written called I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Mm-hmm. It's a bestseller, New York Times bestseller, right? And it was about this one woman's journey to try to catch this asshole.
What?
And it brought light on the situation. And it brought people back into it.
And they got re-engaged.
And they caught him. And he was in his fancy ass subdivision, and they arrested him. And he looks just like, here, look at it. All right, so this is the one they did in the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the guy.
Yeah.
So tell me, not this one, but this one. Tell me how close this is. It's pretty close. This is the guy. Oh, wow. Look at his eye. Look how close his eyes are together. You see? Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. It's hard to tell since he's aged so much. Yeah. But wow, that's crazy.
But he actually got fired as a police officer because he broke into he was caught shoplifting. He was shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent.
Oh, well, that was probably used in the crimes.
Exactly, right? So I guess the reason you would steal it and not buy it so they can't link it to you.
Yeah, track your credit cards.
Yeah, so this guy's a piece of shit, and I hope he gets...
cash is king.
Yeah,
that's right.
Cash is king. This guy, I hope he gets what's coming to him. Anyway, that was the news updates. No.
All right, so that's getting us in the mood for some serial killings. So we have no idea what the story's about.
Oh, yeah, all right, so here's the premise of the story, or... the premise of the podcast from now on. My co-hosts, Jen and Nicole, they don't know the story that I'm going to tell.
That's correct. We have no clue what's about to happen.
Yeah, so I've been researching this story for quite a while, right? And so I'm going to tell them the story. And unfortunately, it's not really a ghost story. And it can be all creepy, but it's still a really good story.
Serial killings are probably pretty creepy in its own right. So
I told them that the family is German, and there's an apple... something with apples involved. So they actually made a drink that we're drinking, right? Well, tell us about this drink.
That's right. So all we know is that German and apple. So we just had some bratwurst for dinner together in preparation for this podcast. And so I made an apple strudel martini, which is, let's see, what is it? 2 parts vodka, 2 parts apple brandy, 1 part Goldschlager, which I haven't had since college, 1 part lemon juice, and 2 parts apple juice.
And 100 parts delicious.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's really good, actually.
I do feel like it's more of a fall drink.
You do have
Wait,
a
there's
little...
Goldschlager in here?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Don't you remember those days when, like, oh my gosh, it has little gold flecks in it?
I actually...
Yeah, that was super bad, remember?
Yeah, I know.
I actually have never had Goldschlager before.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well, it definitely predates Fireball, which has gotten super popular for the cinnamon, which, I don't know. Fireball, no. No way, Jose. So we're drinking this apple strudel drink. I'm pretty pleased with it. So we're nice and full from our bratwurst, and so hopefully we'll understand where this German and apple theme comes from.
Yeah. All right, get us started.
Wow. I don't know. I'll tell you.
Once upon a time.
Where is the story taking place?
Okay, well, first I want to set up the story a little bit. The reason I am really excited about this story is because, and everyone else talks about this family as they're gruesome, awful people, serial killers. But I look at them, and I know you'll appreciate this, as entrepreneurs.
That's kind of twisted, don't you think?
It is twisted, and I'm going to go into that. But
Okay.
These serial killers are serial killers in general. It's hard to make a generalized statement.
No, because there's a difference. If you're like the Zodiac killer, he has no care about money, right? But these killers, if they're killing primarily for profit, they're entrepreneurs.
Oh, well.
So, yeah.
Okay. All
right. So you know that there's some German involved, and you know there's something with apples. So,
I think I am getting a clearer picture.
I mean, all I can think about is like a poison apple from Snow White.
I mean, I think it has something to do with our friend Steve Jobs and his apples, but...
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the story is going to be a little bit earlier in time than that.
Yeah, all right. Okay, put yourself back to 1873.
Well, I was definitely way off, but that's okay.
When did you think it was?
She thought it had to do with Apple iPhone.
Oh, no. No, this is 1873. This is way before cars, computers, Tinder. Way before this stuff. So, all right, I'm gonna tell a story from almost the ending. Wait, I shouldn't say that because this story doesn't have an ending.
What do you mean?
The killers have never been caught. No one to this day knows what happened to these killers.
Well, I feel like we're safe to assume that they're dead by now.
They are dead by now because this was literally 150 years ago. But do you know? And I think this is human nature. As humans, we don't like things that go unanswered, like unanswered questions.
No, unfinished business is actually has to do with man, I literally just finished this class. It is in a counseling theory that one of the theories to resolve one of the points is to resolve unfinished business, and I think it's actually the Gestalt theory, if I remember correctly.
He sounds like a smart guy.
Well,
is he German?
Oh, he is German. That is a German name.
Actually, Gestalt was not the founder.
He was involved?
No, the founder was actually a man by the last name of Pearls. So, and he and his daughter actually worked to develop this theory. But it's one of the main points of the theory is to help clients finish their unfinished business.
Yeah, because we hate that. Like, I mean, it's just with anything, like a story that goes unfinished. When you don't know the ending, it bugs us. It just bugs the hell out of us.
That's true. It's like why closure is so important for
closure.
And that's why you don't ghost people.
You don't ghost people on Tinder.
Fucked up, man.
Yeah. So this story is still and there's still historians today that are still making it their life mission to solve this thing. And it's like, 150 years ago. The people are already dead, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story, not from the beginning. And I'm not trying to tease you guys, but I feel like this is the best way to tell this story because the story's really, it's got a lot of moving parts. Okay, so we're going to start our story in 1873 on April 30th. In the wee hours in the dawn, I mean, as soon as the sun was coming up, even before, there was Colonel Edward York. He was a state senator of Kansas, and he was a badass mofo, right? And he was rustling up an entire posse, probably 12 to 20 roughnecks, right, to ride with him. And he was coming out of Fort Scott. And this is in Kansas. So if you guys are not familiar with geography, Kansas, do you know where Kansas is, Jen?
I do know where Kansas is. I don't know if my sister does because she's not very good with the states. But go on.
Do you know where Kansas is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was third place in my school's geography meet.
Oh,
Really? I lost a spelling bee once because I couldn't spell nauseous.
That's a hard word.
It's hard. Nauseau, right? Nauseous? No.
Oh, don't ask me to
That's
spell it. That's what I got
nausea.
eliminated
It's
on.
nausea.
I think there's a lot of
Yeah. I'm getting nauseous spelling nauseous. Okay, so April 30th, 1873, Colonel Edward York rounds up his posse of roughnecks. They got rifles, they got pistols, and they are, at least he is pissed.
Why?
Because he is on a mission to find his brother that has been missing for 6 weeks. His brother was Dr. William York. He was a prominent physician, well-known, well-liked. Everyone loved this guy.
What was he well known for?
He was the best physician in southeastern Kansas.
Well,
So if you all right, so if you think about Kansas, it's right above Oklahoma. If you don't know geography, look for the finger. That's Oklahoma. It's like the finger.
The
It looks
panhandle?
no Oklahoma.
a
is like
pointer finger, not
pointer
a middle finger,
Yeah,
just to be clear.
the pointing finger. That's Oklahoma, right above Texas. The state above that is Kansas. So if you go right to the it looks like a point. It's a point.
It's not a panhandle, it's a pointer finger.
It's a point. It's like a point.
What?
Oklahoma is, if you are
Can you
looking at
please
your
pull out
left
a map
hand,
for?
if you look at your left
It's
hand,
the panhandle.
Yeah, but it looks like
okay, yeah.
Are you kidding?
It looks like a
pointer finger.
It looks
No,
like
I don't call it a
pointing
pointer finger. I just wanted to clarify for our listeners
Hey,
that he's not
our
talking about
listeners-
states giving people a finger.
It's
no.
literally the panhandle.
Our listeners of
I thought that was
all
Florida.
ages, like third grade too. You know, we're doing this on a fourth grade level here. So it's a finger on the map. Okay. Anyway, above that is Kansas.
Florida has a panhandle. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
Can I tell my story?
Okay.
At the very bottom of Kansas, to the very right above the Oklahoma border, is where this entire story takes place.
Okay.
Okay. So in April, you want to say something, Jen?
Well, I was just gonna,
You just kind of jump in.
and I just wanted to add about a fact that's not really related at all, but a fun fact about Kansas is that if you are familiar with Kansas City, and I found this out a couple of years ago, if Kansas City is a city that is in Kansas, but it's also a city that's in Missouri. But when you think about Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas is actually the same city. It's just divided between two state lines.
That is true.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
That
It
is
is.
true, and it's insanely inefficient too
Right.
for the post office,
Well, yeah.
because there's probably a lot of lost mail that goes to the. Maybe not. Hey, I think I can actually one up you on your fun facts of the day. You know,
I didn't
the
know it was a
slogan?
contest, but
It's always a contest.
well, this is
Do you know
true.
the slogan for Texas? Don't mess with Texas.
Yes.
Okay, that was actually spawned from an anti-littering campaign in the 80s. It was on. They put signs up with the litter signs that you
Yep.
see on the. It says "Don't mess this place up." It was "Don't mess with Texas."
Is
and it
that
was,
like Crying Man?
What do you mean, Crime Man? Burning Man?
No.
I don't know what you're talking about. But that was an anti-litter. I mean, isn't that cool? No,
That is, I mean,
well, I guess it didn't one up yours. Okay. Anyway, 1873.
Kansas.
at least mine was related.
Yeah, that's true. Well, mine comes into the story.
Go on.
I will make it fit.
Go on with it, will ya?
Colonel Edward York. No,
Colonel Sanders and his gang of chickens.
Colonel Edward York is on a mission because his brother, the prominent physician, Dr. William York, has been missing. And he was very well loved, right? So he mounts his horse and he rides out. And he knows where he's going because he's been there. In fact, he's been there the night before. He's going to the Bender Inn, the family of the Benders, because they know something about his brother. He was there just the other day, literally 18 hours before. Why are you staring at me like that?
Well, I just want to know how he knew that the Benders knew anything about his brother.
Well, I'll get to that, but...
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Being a veteran of the Civil War, and, I mean, this dude was a freaking awesome guy, just reading about him. He was amazing. And he was, like, very intelligent, so he knew right off the bat that this family, if they didn't have something to do with it, they knew something about it.
Do you think that the Benders went on a killing bender?
Maybe. Anyway, so they ride out to this cabin, and this cabin is on the Osage Trail. The Osage Trail is the trail, and think about it, this is way back in the day, literally 150 years ago. There was no interstate I-26. The Osage Trail is now part of Route 66. But back in those days, that was the main road of travel for all homesteaders. And I'll get into homesteading a little bit. But Colonel York and his posse, they ride out to go visit the Benders to try to get some information, right? And they're coming up close to the cabin. And he tells his men, okay, you know, the sun's coming up now. He's like, all right, they're probably about 100 yards away. He's like, all right, half of you guys go left. Let's flank left. The other half will go right. We're going to surround this cabin because they weren't going to knock on the door. Like, they knew exactly what they were going to take these people, you know, they were going to apprehend these people, right? And he wasn't a police officer. So this was literally vigilantes. He was in the military, obviously, and he was a state senator. But back then, you didn't really have to have a search warrant to do this type of stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. So they get close to the cabin, and they have their rifles drawn, and they start yelling at the Benders because they know they're in there. They say stuff like, come on out, Benders, we know you're in there. Come on out with your hands up. Stuff like that, you know?
Because it's 1873.
Yes, yeah, and they all talk like that. We're going to shoot this place to smithereens, you know, stuff like that. So
those rascals.
Yeah, right. So anyway, they surround this cabin and they start inching closer. And then what they notice is, all right, these guys aren't coming out at all. They know this family is in there. It's a family. Keep in mind,
like a mom and dad and a.
It's a mom. No, a mom and dad. Ma Bender, which we're going to get to. Pa Bender, John Jr., which is 25-year-old son.
Good night, Jim Bob. Good night.
John Jr., 25-year-old son, and then Kate Bender, which we're definitely going to get into Kate Bender in a little bit, right? Okay. So they know they're in there. They start inching closer, but they don't. They like can see through they have one window in the front of the cabin, and we can actually pull up pictures of this too. It's really cool because this story was actually during the time when photography was just now a thing. Oh. So in fact, the first pictures ever taken really to be published in like modern newspapers was of this crime scene, which like fueled it even more. And it's really cool to see the actual crime scene, you know, from those old ass pictures. So they surround the cabin and they're getting closer, and the cabin is not very big. It's a they made it 3 years ago. It's a makeshift cabin, right? It's literally the size of this room, probably 800 square feet. Not even that, 600 square feet, right? So they're surrounded, they get closer, and then they notice, okay, there's either three things. Number one, they're in there armed and ready to kill us. Number two, they're dead because they could have been killed by Indians, they could have been killed by bandits, they could have been anything, you know, wild wolves, whatever. Or number three, they're gone, which is probably unlikely because he was just there 18 hours ago, right? So Colonel York demounts his horse, and he says, all right, hold your fire, don't shoot. You know, we're all around this cabin. He demounts his horse. One of his posse member goes with him. He goes up to the door, and they kind of look in the window. You know how they do. Like the police officers always, they don't want to put their body in front of it. Because if they had a rifle or something.
Can I just add something? When you were talking about that, all I can think of was the Pink Panther theme. So
We can add that in there. Wait, that's probably copywritten. So all right, so Colonel York goes up to the door, right? It's this wooden door. It's not like the door we have now. That's way better quality, obviously. This was literally probably a plank. And he kicks it in. He kicks it so hard it actually comes off the hinges, right? And this guy, and the dust settles because it's all dusty. And Colonel York runs in there with his other posse member, right? And the other guys they have the whole thing surrounded. They're about to shoot out, all out war, right? Mm-hmm. And once they get into the cabin, Colonel York is astounded by what he finds. Do you guys want to guess what he finds?
Bodies?
Weapons.
Of mass destruction? WMDs?
What is it?
They find not shit. There's nothing in there. It's completely empty.
Well, that was a misleading question.
It is misleading, and I'm sorry to do that. But if you kind of get into the psychology of it, I'm about to tell you about this family. Think about this empty cabin. Yeah. They've been living in this cabin for 3 years. Even in those days, if you were to go into someone's cabin, no matter how small and simple it is, they have family heirlooms. They have things of sentiment value. You know, now we have pictures on the wall. Even if you were to go into an abandoned building today that was once a home, you could kind of tell that there was a life in there, right? Mm-hmm. This was nothing. It was desolate. It was nothing.
Like they just cleared out?
They cleared out.
Like there was no furniture?
No, there was no furniture to begin with. Well, there was a table, and they were actually sleeping on pallets. I don't know if that was, thinking about it, there's probably not like mattress firms like every 3 miles.
No, but I'm pretty sure that in the 1800s they had mattresses. I mean, you think about...
They did have mattresses, but yeah. I'm going to go into this family. But keep that in mind. Keep in the empty cabin in mind. Because this, like when I was doing my research on this family, like that kept coming to my mind. Because there's nothing in there, and it really symbolizes the emptiness of this family. Because this is a really, really screwed up family. Okay.
Well, it kind of sounds like these guys are the killers already.
Or are they?
Sorry for the teaser, but it's the best way to do this story.
Oh, that's not the beginning?
No.
That's the end.
We're going to get into... If you want it... All right, so...
Okay. All right, you got my attention. I thought that was the beginning of the story. And I was like, well, what's the point of this whole thing if we know that that's how it's going to...
Well, all right, so...
I thought it began with a search.
No, it did not begin. It ended with a search. And it's the best way to tell it.
Well,
right?
I'll be damned.
Okay, well, it's never really ended, but the last concrete event that took place was this search, right? Mm-hmm. And upon entering the house, Colonel York found absolutely nothing. He found half-eaten fruit. He found dishes that were still in, dirty. He found half-poured cups of coffee. There was still a candle lit. There's nothing. Upon first entering, there was no benders. There was nothing. So he doesn't know yet if these guys did anything. He was just there to question them. But his suspicion was definitely sparked. So if you wanted to find these benders, and he didn't really know this at the time because he's not from the area, if you really knew them, where would you look? Well, okay. Previous neighbors and people that have interacted with the benders knew a few things. They knew the only two people in that family of four that spoke any English was Kate and her brother John Jr. Pa Bender and Ma Bender didn't speak any English whatsoever. They spoke German. So they were German immigrants, especially Pa Bender. He was... Let me paint a picture of this guy in your head. So he's about 6'2". He's 62, 65 years old, somewhere around there. He's bitter. He's an alcoholic. He hates everything. He hates his wife.
He sounds lovely.
And number one fact, he's a bear. He's a grizzly bear, right? Literally. He's stout.
Not literally.
He's huge, right? He's 6'2", he's huge, he's wide, and he's got this grizzly beard. Literally, they actually refer to him like a grizzly bear. He's huge. You wouldn't want to mess with him. And he's extremely bitter. And everyone that has had contact with him in the past, even though he doesn't speak any English, they know that he's yelling in German, you know. So, anyway, that would be the first place you want to look. And that's going to take us back to Germantown, New York, where this family started from, okay? Supposedly, this family originates from Germantown, New York. Now, Pa Bender is the only one that is for certain that he's either from the German area or the Netherlands, which some people call it Holland, but Holland's not a country.
By the German area, would you be referring to Germany?
Yeah, Netherlands is a country. Was it?
I said by the German area, would you be referring to Germany?
Yeah, Germany. So he's from Germany, immigrated.
It may have been Prussia back then.
No, it wasn't Prussia. It was Germany. Either way, he's from Germany. He's from that area, German, right?
Okay.
He comes to immigrate to the United States, where he settles in, obviously, Germantown, New York. And there's no records that really pinpoint anyone here, but it's very, very well assumed that these guys came from here. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there is where he met Ma Bender. Now, Ma Bender, her real name, and she may not even be German at all. She's a character. Her real name is Alamira. Supposedly. Now, there's not Ancestry.com. There's no records or anything. So this is like, you know, a lot of speculation here. But she was the real mother of her daughter, Kate. And those two were the only biologically related people in that family.
What?
Yes.
So they're just a whole bunch of, like, bandits.
This story gets better. Okay. Yes.
Huh. Okay.
In
so
Germantown,
Ma and Kate are related. Ma is the true mother of Kate.
Ma, we know for a fact, is the true mother of Kate.
Okay.
Now, Ma had a few vices in life. She loved money a lot. And
we all.
Yeah. And she loved...
I wouldn't know. I don't have any.
Yeah, none of us do. She loved money and she loved wealthy men. And
Gold digger.
And back then...
Get the money when I'm in need.
Back then...
And she's a trifling Brandy. Oh, she's a gold digger.
She was a gold digger, for real.
Oh, this girl started it.
Not girl, woman, older age woman, but in her prime.
She's a cougar too.
No, she is not anymore. She's been kind of abused by Mother Time, right?
Well, that doesn't mean she's not a cougar.
Isn't there a next stage cougar? Like, isn't there another level? Like panther or
leopard or something.
I think that's a thing. Like, when you're too old to be a cougar.
Jaguar.
Maybe that's
yes,
right.
Jaguar.
I think you're a jaguar.
I've never heard of that.
Yes, Jaguar.
But I must admit, I am a fan of the show Cougar Town.
Well, there you go.
I am too. Anyway, so...
What?
Do you like that show?
It's a pretty good show.
I like
You've
it.
seen that show?
Yeah, I used to watch it.
It's written by the same guy as Scrubs.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's a good show.
I have lost a lot of respect for you, baby.
Anyway. Okay, so Ma Bender, right? I'm just going to refer to her as Ma, because her name is Almira, but
all right, Ma.
She's Ma from now on, okay? And her name wasn't even Bender. Her last name was Meek or something.
So Al, whatever, it wasn't
Almira.
her last name. I thought that was like her last name. You weren't giving her.
No,
a first
that was
name.
her first name. Her last name is Meik, supposedly. Meek. That's her last name, supposedly.
So she married to Pa?
None of these people are named Bender.
But is she married to Pa?
Just let me get there.
All right.
Ma, I got to. This is a very complex story.
Okay, we'll get to it, won't you?
It's very complex. Ma Bender loves money, and and the best way to get money, right, is to, hitch some wealthy ass man, right?
I mean, that was my plan when I moved to Charleston.
That should be everyone's plan.
Too.
Anyway, she played it up. I mean, she had 12 husbands before. 12.
That's like Elizabeth Taylor status.
She was known as today she's known as a Black Widow, right? So all of her husbands rest in peace, died slow medical deaths, aka she poisoned the shit out of these guys. Every one of them, all 12 of them. She kills all 12 of these husbands. And she was living off this money, so she was wealthy, right? She was living off all this cash coming in from these people. I mean, whatever, robber barons, real estate, whatever they were doing, you know. She may have been a mistress to some of them, but she was still collecting the cash. And then she would just kill them off. So she was a black widow. And her son, or excuse me, her daughter, Kate, real name Katie, we're going to refer to her as Kate. She grew up in that lifestyle, probably in Germantown, New York, seeing mama with all these different men, killing these men.
Getting their money.
And on top of that, Mama Bear here was also a prostitute. She was...
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, she was selling her body. So Kate saw that. And then what happened, as soon as Ma started to age, she didn't make as much money.
She had to take over the family business.
She was getting, you know, less looks from the men. They weren't really attracted to her like they were, you know, in the past. Mm-hmm. So, but old Kate Bender, her daughter, was getting around the age of 15, 16. She's coming up in the world. And the guy started to notice it. So she followed Mama's, you know, way of life, right? So she started pickpocketing on the streets, and then she started prostitution.
The apple does not far fall from the tree.
Exactly.
Oh, I see what you did there with the apple.
That is not the reason we're drinking apple martinis. Apple strudel martinis. Anyway, so she started seeing this, and then she started acting on it. But she's an entrepreneur, man. She had bigger aspirations in mind, right? She had bigger goals in life.
More than just horn around.
Well, not that. All right, think about it. She liked the money because it provided freedom. But she wanted a more stable freedom, not killing off these guys. It would take forever. You'd have to marry this guy. Even if it's common law, you have to
It's an investment of time.
Yeah, it's an investment. So she was more of the quick money getting type of girl.
Get rich faster, die trying.
Yeah, and she saw that. And so she wanted to do things her own way, right? She doesn't like this investment of getting men, tell them you love them. Oh, yes, I do.
Who has time for that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the new century. She's ready to, I mean, she's a hustler, you know?
Well, okay.
And this is why I like this story, because she is an entrepreneur, you can tell. So not only that, but the husbands are dying off, right? Ma's done killed all the husbands off. So she's the breadwinner now. And Ma hates that.
Oh, Ma's jealous.
Yeah, so Ma's jealous. So Kate, what she does is she decides to go out on her own. Well, she includes the family, but she does a different venture than just killing off these old-timey farts, right?
So is Ma and Pa together at this point, or have they not gotten together yet?
Within this time period, they do get together. I do not think that they were married at all, because he has a completely different heritage too. We think that he is actually the only one from Germany. Mm-hmm. Even though Kate and John have a German accent, Ma Bender pretends that she doesn't know English, but it has come out that she actually does know English. So she may not be from Germany per se, but they definitely met in a German immigrant town.
Okay.
So either I don't after doing my research.
So when you think about it back then, like all the German immigrants, they all moved to the same town.
Yeah, exactly.
So they all speak the same
Exactly.
And that's why it's called Germantown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of German towns, not just New York. I mean, all over. I mean, still today, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Okay.
Isn't it funny how like towns are named?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We live in Mount Pleasant, and it is quite nice here.
It is pleasant. I'll give them that.
It is.
It's like having like a Charlestown and a Charleston.
Yeah, Yeah, it used to be Charlestown.
And did you know that
It used to be Charlestown.
Yeah.
Well, in Charleston,
but there are Charlestowns in other places.
like
too.
in Boston.
Well, there's a Charleston in West Virginia. It's the capital.
Right, but Charleston is actually to pay homage to King Charles.
Yeah,
of
the
Great
second
Britain.
King Charles II. Sorry.
Oh, well, you already knew that, so I don't know why I even.
Well, maybe
Sometimes I forget that you guys have already been living here and I'm not delivering new
maybe
information.
All two of our listeners didn't know that.
King Charles II was a notorious womanizer, which is why Charleston is the WHORE town it is today.
Charleston's not a whore town.
Charleston is a town of fun.
It is.
Yes, it is.
It's fun, but it's not a whore
Charleston used to be a very strict town. I mean, think about all the churches here. You think there's all these...
The Holy City.
The Holy City.
Exactly. And it wasn't until King Charles II moved in, and he was kind of a liberal, and he abolished all the laws. Like, you can't have sex with unless you're married, and you can't go out and party. Women can't be out. Like, all those were laws. He abolished all of them, and Charleston became a haven for people to come down and with their mistresses, and it became a whore town. I'm sorry, it is. Charleston's a whore town. We live in a whore town.
Well, we need to get back to the middle finger state, or the panhandle, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so somewhere in this time period, Kate and Ma, they hook up with Pa Bender, right? And that's not his name either. His real name supposedly is John Flickinger.
And that's why we're calling him Pa Bender.
Yeah, so I'm going to call him Pa from now on. And also the brother, John Jr. Bender, real name John Gebhardt, may or may not be related to Kate.
Ooh.
So that's why I'm trying to build the suspense, because I say family, and then you think of that empty-ass cabin. This isn't even a real freaking family, per se.
They're like acquaintances.
Yeah, so
Except for
Ma and Kate are guaranteed the same blood, but they most likely met John Jr. Now, John Jr. could have been Ma's son from a different husband. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
So they could be related, which that could be a very high possibility that Kate and John are related.
Makes sense.
But not from the same dad. Exactly. But as you'll definitely need to know later, Pa Bender is not related to Kate, even though that's her father. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's get on this, man. Let's drive through this. Okay, so Kate wants to make some money. And at this time period, the Civil War ended. Okay, this is 1873. The Civil War is done. The whole economy of the nation is in freaking peril, right? And the Indians, right, were being relocated to other areas. Basically, we were kicking them out. Freaking, it is what it is, right? So the country was in economic peril. Mm-hmm. The U.S. government says, okay, we need to do something about this shit. Like, this is bad. What they did was when they kicked the Indians out, they moved for Kansas, where we are. They moved those Indians, the Osage Indians, they moved them to tribes in Oklahoma, to their own community. And they opened up parts of Kansas through the Osage Trail. And they said they enacted the Homesteading Act, right? Okay, so what the Homestead Act did in 1862 was they opened up 270 million acres. That's 10% of the entire United States to 1.6 million homesteaders. So they said, hey, right, if you're willing to pick up your family and all your belongings, you can move to anywhere in this region and start anew. You
Manifest
can start
destiny.
You can have land for free. Think about that. Like, think about today. They would never give you land for free.
Yep.
But back then, they were in such desperation that they did that. And people would relocate, and they all would go through that Osage Trail. Mm-hmm. They'd all travel up there. So also keep this in mind. If the government said, hey, Jen, you can relocate if you want, you have to come to within this region. You're going to take all your wealth, right? You're taking everything. What you're not going to have two homes.
You can't leave it behind.
Right.
On your wagon, you're taking everything that you own, all your money, everything, all your jewelry, everything. So keep that in mind, right? So
like the Oregon Trail.
Exactly. So Kate Bender, being the entrepreneur-minded spirit she is, and tired of prostitution, because there's one report that she was ravishly raped to the point of almost death, which may play into her hatred of men, right? She decides she sees a golden freaking opportunity. There are people traveling on this trail with all of their wealth. Think about it. In today's dollars, this means like some of these people would be like $200,000, $300,000 traveling. They got everything they own.
Right.
Some of these are wealthy people, and they're out in the open. And the open was dangerous enough, right? There wasn't local police everywhere pulling you over. I mean, there was all kinds of wildlife, number one, but the Indians were still killing people. You know, there were bandits, there were highway robberies. They call them highwaymen. They'd hold you up, and they wouldn't say, "Give me all your money and I'll let you go." No, the first thing they do is cap you. They don't want any witnesses. They would shoot you in the head and then take all your money. So it was dangerous enough. So Kate Bender saw a golden opportunity. She said she could go down there and do it better, right? So she got all these plans, all these plots of land, and she literally spent months doing this during her time prostituting. She's looking at all these plots of land, and she picks out the perfect one. It was right off the Osage Trail, back in the back. And she says, at the time, the whole family was together. She says, Pa, and I don't know if they were going by Benders back then, but they said, "Hey, Pa and John, you guys go out and secure this land in Kansas, southeastern Kansas. You secure this land and build us a cabin. Make sure it's off the beaten trail. Put up a small sign that says grocery, and plant some apple orchards around, you know, because it makes us look like we're farmers, AKA we don't want to be seen. We want to be completely concealed. In fact, you could not see this Bender Tavern if you're coming like over the trail. You can't see it until you're about 100 feet away from it. You don't know what the shit they were going to do there. She knew that. She planned for months. Literally planning like a real estate developer, right? They go down there and they build this badass cabin. A couple months later, her mom and Kate go down there with her. So anyway, interesting side note, Ma Bender, being the poisonous she was, she brought the steam trunk, which is a big ass trunk, kind of like a bedside trunk.
Yeah.
2/3 of that steam trunk was filled of poisons and arsenics.
Oh, jeez.
She was dedicated to her craft.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so
that wasn't even speculation before. Like, she literally killed these men with poison.
yeah, she
Like, confirmed.
Yes, confirmed.
Easy.
No, the numbers are not confirmed, but they are up there because that was her life, right?
Well, she had 12 husbands and all 12 died.
All 12 died, yes. From what the reports say.
What a poison apple.
But she was poisoning them
apple.
slowly. That's the thing. She was poisoning them real slowly. They would die off after weeks and
So it made
weeks
it look
and
like they were just
weeks.
ill or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they literally died from illness, and it took forever. And then Kate Bender liked fast money, so she saw this. I mean, she knew that all these travelers with $200,000, I mean, in today's dollars,
Right.
probably a couple thousand back then, they were taking all their wealth up there.
Right.
Yeah.
What a genius to see that, like the entrepreneurial spirit. No one says that about her, but
Maybe
wow.
she should write a textbook.
Maybe.
Well, I think
Business
it's too late
101.
now. Okay, so they build a cabin.
They built a cabin, secluded as shit from the Osage Trail, but it's still noticeable. And they have a makeshift sign. They told Pa Bender to go write this sign. He doesn't know any damn English.
Yeah, probably
It said,
the wrong person.
it said grocery. It said grocery.
Did it actually say grocery?
Yeah, grocery. GROCRY. Grocery. That's what it
Grockery.
said. Yeah. That's what it said. And it was off the beaten track. But you see the sign, because think about it. If you're a homesteader, you're traveling for weeks, right? And you have all this cash. You stop at the nearby towns. You see some grocery. Not only do you have to feed yourself, you have to feed your horses.
So they put the sign out so people would stop them.
They put the sign out, people stop. If you're traveling, you've been traveling like for 2 days, and you're on this trail, it's hot as shit. You know, your horse is like probably about to peel over and die.
Yeah.
You want to stop for some groceries, right? And they had oats there and stuff in the cabin. So you stop and get a home cooked meal, and then get a nice rest of sleep before and you wouldn't stay overnight. It's not like you're booking it for 2 weeks. You probably only sleep 3 hours. It's not like you have a checkout time.
Like a rest stop.
Yeah, like a rest stop, which is funny. Keep that in mind, because The actual site now. Okay, so where the historical marker is right now, that says all about the Bloody Benders, is located at a rest stop.
Oh, there you go.
You pull into the rest stop, and there it is.
Oh,
It's the historical marker. So it fits the analogy. Kate and Ma go down there. Now Kate is into witchcraft, obviously, not witchcraft, spiritualism. So at the time, during this time, after the Civil War, a lot of people have died. So this branch of spiritualism, it was called spiritualism, kind of the occult, not witchcraft per se, but like numerology, astrology,
tarot cards,
talk to your dead husband that died in the war. That became really big, right? And she saw that as an entrepreneur. She saw that, and she is a self-proclaimed spiritualist. This is her ad in the paper. This is an actual ad that she had put out in 1872. It says, Miss Katie Bender can heal all sorts of diseases, can cure blindness, fits, deafness, and such diseases, also deaf and dumbness. Residence 14 miles east of Independence, that's Kansas, on the road from Independence to Osage Mission Trails, same thing. 1.5 miles southeast of Norhead Station, Katie Bender. So that was an actual ad that she had put out in the paper.
Well, I mean, she clearly didn't proofread it. She mentions deafness twice. How common was that?
Well, I don't know if she had a Grammarly account back then, but...
Well, she should have invested. It's the best decision I made.
I know, right? So, and not only that, but she was actually really good at it. So when they moved down there, it took about 6 months for them to start whacking people off, right? Like whacking people off.
Yeah.
It took 6 months for...
It took 6 months for them to start killing people.
Okay.
So during that time, she had to build up some sort of bankroll, and she was a spiritualist. So they would have a grocery, right? They would sell oats, tobacco, a grockery. They would sell, horse maintenance. Johnny Jr. was the horse maintenance guy, right? Yeah. And one side note, to get a good picture of John Jr. in your mind, think kind of tall. Some say handsome, but he has this. He's one of those people that laugh at just random times, right? Giggles for no reason. So a lot of people thought he had a mental disorder, which he may have. Just to get, yeah,
it's a good descriptor, actually.
Yeah. So
something's off about him.
So a lot of the locals actually, especially the female locals, right, used Kate Bender and her services and actually recommended her to a lot of people. They thought she was really good. There's a lot of accounts of her actually finding missing stuff, like missing articles, like sheep or rings. There's a lot of accounts of her actually doing something that worked. And she would do tarot readings for like 5 cents and the sorts.
Well, it kind of makes me wonder if she was like, if she came in with the mindset of this as a business, could she have also been involved in taking those items?
Yeah, interesting.
Most likely all the items that they sold were redistributed and taken. Because as I'll start to show you, like people that come to visit, they got to get rid of the evidence. And if they're carrying something, they can sell it.
No, I'm talking about like the people that went to her for her spiritualism. Like what makes me wonder if maybe she was also involved in some petty crime before to get those people to come to her so that she could find the items.
I don't know. Maybe that's a really good point.
We'll never know.
There is a story, and all right. So a lot of the farmers, the men, did not want their wives to spend money on this girl, right? Because number one, Kate Bender was extremely beautiful, and I know I say that about all my murderous women, but she had a strong. They said she had an eagle face, and I don't know what celebrity I can really tell you about, but a big jawline, right? Very prominent jawline.
Like Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, maybe like Angelina. But she had really strong presence. And she was very smart. She read all the occult and all this stuff, and she was really knowledgeable in medical issues, So, and she had like black hair, or kind of like brownish hair. She was very pretty, and she had a kind of a German accent. And I mean, think about it. This is miles away from nowhere. Okay? So... Yeah, you see this girl, the prettiest girl you ever seen in your life, and you ever will see in your life, because you've seen no one else, right?
Right.
So, and she would dress to the nines, and she used that, like, she would practice to seduce men. I mean, she learned it from her mama, right? She was prostituting.
Right.
So she knows what would make guys tick, and she knows they just want sex, and she would play that. She'd play that card all day long. So anyway, what I was trying to get to is there's one story where this wife goes and like accuses Kate of turning into a cat, sneaking into their home and having sex with her husband, and then transforming back into a cat and then leaving.
Oh, I mean, I thought you were talking about some bestiality shit for a second, but that makes more sense, right?
I mean, that could have been involved too. But so that was Kate Bender. So she had a side hustle, but these were for appearances. Pa Bender, was a farmer. Was he making any money? Shit, no. Right? Do you know what how they really made money? All right, so they had 3 rules before they killed someone. And obviously they're serial murderers, right? Because we wouldn't be covering this. 3 rules they could never break. And Kate was the ringleader. Everyone looked up to her and they shut their freaking mouth when she was talking. She was a bad ass girl, right?
A Bamf.
Yeah, she was a Bamf.
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 Are we gonna have like a weekly like vocabulary lesson?
Badass motherfucker. Yeah.
job. Yeah,
Okay,
there you
gotcha. She was a Bamf. I don't like that word. It doesn't sound good. Bamf. If.
All right.
We can cut it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back from what Colonel York when he busted in that door, and this will really paint the picture. Okay, so
Wait, but why aren't we just jumping off from where we were, where she was?
because I want to show you what was under the cellar. Don't you want to know what was under the cellar? There was nothing in the house, but there was something under the cellar.
Go on.
Yeah.
You had my attention.
All right. All righty then. Colonel York. He is, as soon as he breaks down the door, he knows no one's home. Right? And he sees, like I said, an empty cabin. But he notices...
It's not empty. There's just no people.
There's no people there. But he does notice something from his life in the Civil War. He notices a very slight scent that is familiar to him from his wartime. And this scent was kind of being covered up by that candle. And the candle was on the table, just like the candle is now. Right? So it kind of twitches his nose, a little bit. He walks over there and he kind of looks under the table. And there's a door.
A trap door.
There's a trap door.
Done.
And the trap door is 3 or 4 boards nailed together, and it's got a leather strap on it.
They didn't do a good job of hiding that.
No, they didn't. It was under the table. Side note: most people kept their cellars outside during this time.
Like a bulkhead?
So most people that would see these cellars would think it was
storm
very unusual to see that. So he saw that and he knew what was under there. He pulls open that strap, and the stench that he was smelling earlier has multiplied by 1,000, and it knocks him on his ass. It is so strong. It's the scent of decomposition. Not like he smelled before, but on a whole new level. Because remember, he was looking for his brother. That wasn't just the scent of his brother decomposing. His men go down in that cellar. And the funny thing is, they don't find any bodies. No bodies at all.
What do you mean?
But they do find, because they took the candle down there with them, 3 feet deep of this dirt. Because this Bender family that I was telling you about, had dug a cellar under their house. 3 feet deep of this dirt was red. It was blood red. Pools of blood has permanently soaked this dirt. But there were no bodies at all.
Well, where is everybody?
And and keep in mind, they had to put their scarves on their nose. I mean, this was unbearable. The stench. So think about it. There were obviously a load of people died here. This Bender family was living for 3 years with dead people under the cellar. Does that make sense? Like in the apparitions of the dead, like the spirits, they were living this shit. That's how empty these guys were. Okay, so Colonel York was fucking pissed now. He knew that their body's somewhere. They're not in there. Where are they? They got to be somewhere close.
But the soil is just red with
red,
blood?
3 feet deep.
That doesn't make any sense. Because
when you kill someone, like I'm going to tell you how they did, the blood pulls out. All the blood comes out the big artery. And and if you got more than one people, it just sits there and blood doesn't like to go away. Okay? Colonel York knew that the bodies were somewhere. They go outside again and he's looking around and it's hot as shit. He's looking around, couldn't see anything. He thinks he sees something over there, kicks some dirt. No, fuck, nothing. Damn it. The guys they have their shovels everywhere. They're wiping sweat off their brow. They can't find anything, right? They actually brought these. Do you guys know what rebar is?
No.
It's kind of this long metal rod. Mm-hmm. They brought these metal rods with them. It's this long metal rod. Yeah. And so they were shoveling, but that gets hard to do after a while. So what they do, they're looking for bodies. Right. They stick this rod in, and that's how they find for bodies. So that's what they were using. So Colonel York, he gets frustrated. He's like, I know my brother, and I forgot to mention earlier, the doctor wasn't the only person that went missing. There are people that go missing all the time. Right. I mean, this is Osage Trail.
Right. Yeah.
But there has been an exponential growth, as the economists say, of people missing.
Now, was it just like wealthy people that they were concerned about, or just like, when I say concerned about, was there a higher number of people of a certain status that went missing, or was it just a higher number of people that were going?
Yeah, I mean, the people missing did have at least medium wealth, you know. As I'll get into later, kind of like their method, they had certain rules for who they killed. But, all right, so Colonel York, frustrated, climbs on top of this cabin. And after this, I'll show you pictures of this, because this is when photography was a thing. All this is pictures, photos. So anyway, Colonel York climbs on the cabin, and he's looking.
To get like a bird's eye view.
Getting a bird's eye view, because the way that Kate Bender structured this was diabolical. Like the way she did it, she was a mastermind. Right? Do? And he looks over, and guess what he sees? He sees some trees of apple orchard. He sees an apple orchard. And the apple orchard looks kind of weird, because there's trees there, all lined up like they should be, but there's mounds beside each other. There's 6 or 7 mounds right beside each other of dirt that should be leveled. I mean, what's the point? And then as soon as he saw that, he knew. Those are shallow graves. Those are bodies. Those are bodies. Mm-hmm. And he yells out in his voice, "Men, I see graves. Mm-hmm. I see graves over yonder by the apple orchard." They go over there. One of the posse members takes that long rod, shoves it into the ground of one of those mounds, pulls it out, and there's an article of clothing on it, like some overalls. So he's like, what the hell is this? He pulls it back, and there's rotten flesh on this stick that has wrapped itself around this bar. Right then, they knew they weren't here investigating a missing brother or a few missing people trying to get some answers. They knew that this family went on a murder spree. And the first day alone, they found 7 bodies. By day 2, when all the townsfolk, aka the entire town, goes out there to the Bender Inn, they find 11 plus numerous body parts.
What?
Numerous body parts. The first body pulled out Dr. York, his brother,
Poor guy.
first body to pull out of the grave. Right? So that was this family. Now keep that in mind. So now this family had 3 rules for killing someone. So they operated this inn. They didn't give a shit about selling tobacco and oats to your freaking horse. They don't give a shit. That's not making them any money. Okay? Rule number 1. Only kill single male riders. There's 4 of us. We're all in this together. You don't want to kill a whole family. Although I will throw in there was a child found.
Oh, no.
I know. I had to throw that in there. But not to give justice to the family, because I don't want to do that, but the child was not beaten, but it is thought that the child, I'm talking about 3-year-old child, a girl still wearing her dress, she had like 1 shoe still on, was buried alive.
That's like Schindler's List level description.
That's what happened. They found this child that wasn't beaten, murdered, but was buried alive, just worse.
That's how can you do that?
Yeah, so now you're getting a good picture, right? Rule number 1, when a rider comes up, make sure he's alone, right? Rule number 2, make sure he has some money on him. You can tell by his clothes, you know. John Jr. was good at, he was the horse, so they all come in horses, right? So immediately he would take the horse and go to the stable, because they had a barn stable built too. Take it to the stable. And it's usually customary in that time to have hidden pouches on the horse's saddle somewhere for your money, because like I said, they were carrying their whole net worth, right? So they want to hide it. And usually they had guns, right? I mean, that's why they only kill a single male rider, because you know he's packing. He's got to protect himself, if nothing else, from wolves.
Yeah.
Right? And number 3, and this is the one that they failed to keep, don't kill anyone that will be missed. Like a prominent doctor from southeastern Kansas with a brother that's a war vet and a state senator of Kansas. Don't kill anyone like that.
Busted.
Yep. But, and I haven't even got into their method of murdering, but the reason they killed that doctor, and I'm going to use him as during the method. So Dr. York, the reason they killed him, he went to the Benders not knowing anything. He left his practice to go find a friend of his that was missing, because there's a lot of people missing. They're popping up everywhere. So he goes to find a friend that was missing for weeks. And he stops at...
They technically broke that rule twice then.
What do you mean?
Since the doctor was looking for his friend.
The only one they killed that would be missed was the doctor.
They didn't kill the friend?
They killed the friend, but his friend didn't fit that category.
But they didn't know that, though.
Well, they made he wasn't a doctor, a physician. See, in a town that small, it's not like now you got like a doctor's office every mile. A town had 1 physician. That was it, right? So if he goes missing, then everyone doesn't get medical care. And then they start to wonder, what the hell, man? Like,
Gotcha. So
yeah.
friend was not...
He wasn't a doctor.
Right. But he was missed.
Although he was missed because his friend went looking for him.
He was missed, but Kate Bender, she was really methodical on who she chose. And she, at the time, didn't think that he would be missed.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you the method of how this Bender family, if you want to call them that, it's a fictional family, killed people. And I'm going to use Dr. York as an example. Okay. Because this is
how they killed all their people.
Everyone they killed. And this is how you know. And even today, guys, you could still find, and I'm not saying that they do, but there's no exact count of how many people were murdered. So if you find these markings, then they were most likely from the Bender family. And I'm going to use the doctor. And Dr. York was a little different because he was actually, he came in to the Bender home and straight interrogated him. So this is why they actually broke the rule. But Kate Bender, when they come in and they pass all the rules, she would give the family a signal. Now, it's speculation, but the signal may have been something like, we're having pork tonight, right? That means this guy is good to go. He's not going to be missed. He's got money, and he's by himself, right? And we have there's no one coming in behind him. No one's looking. We can dispose of this guy real quick. If he passes all those, if he doesn't, perhaps the signal was, we're having potatoes tonight. That means maybe he will be missed. Maybe he doesn't have money. Stuff like that. Right. It was a very precise thing. But if she said, we're having pork tonight, that means it's go time. Pa Bender would get out of the chair, or if he was already out and in the kitchen, he would go in there and get ready. Now, his killing tool was, he had 3 hammers. These were found in a crime scene. Interesting side note, a few years ago, they actually tried to take the actual evidence hammers and do a forensic file, just kind of like, just to do it, to see if they can get DNA from it, just to see how good the technology was. That was kind of interesting. I don't think the blood was too dried up. I don't think they could use it. But all right. So picture a cabin, right? The cabin was partitioned with this, it was a white bed sheet. So you're Dr. York. You come in here, and then you finally agree, because I'm Kate, and I've been flirting with you, showing my cleavage, or not cleavage, but, talking you up. Even after you've been interrogating me and almost blaming me of being up to no good, you finally decide to eat with us, right? You decide to stay and get at least a meal. All the victims are going to sit in the same spot. And this spot is right behind the curtain that partitions. Now, the other side is used for sleeping. So, if you decide to stay, you can go on the other side. But the victim will always sleep here.
And my back is towards it.
Your back is towards it, and here's the reason.
So is this why there were no wall? It was just a one-room cabin. They just used this one.
They used the sheets to partition.
Exactly. It was just a one-room cabin, probably 600 square feet, and they used a dusty old white blanket. It may have been some kind of cowhide or something like that. Just a blanket to hold up. But here's the importance behind that, because you're sitting in that chair like you are now. Here, hold it up, Jen. And then if you look around, Jen, to the other side, do you see where Nicole is? Can you see her silhouette?
Yeah.
So now Pa Bender is on the other side. You don't see him.
No.
But he sees the outline of your head.
Yeah.
He knows where to hit you. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So Pa Bender...
This feels very uncomfortable. I feel very unsafe in my own home.
So Pa Bender, behind the canvas, after Kate is like, we're having pork tonight. And then she gives maybe another nod, because the whole time she's been flirting with this guy, right? So even you're Dr. York, you're a doctor, right?
I am a doctor.
And even though you break the rules, you're suspicious of us.
Am I?
You are. That's why we have to break the rule. But since you're a doctor, hey, I'm in the spirituality stuff. Like, I know medical stuff. Look at me. I'm Kate Bender. Let's talk about this. Do you believe in astrology, all this stuff? She's flirting with you, right? And you're taking a liking to it, because you've never seen a girl like this, especially around these parts. She's very pretty, and she's got a very prominent German accent. So she's flirting with you, but all of a sudden she gives a signal without you seeing. She gives a signal to Pa behind the curtain. And what he does next is he takes that hammer that he's got, one of the 3 hammers, and he smashes it right into the back of your skull as hard as he can. And this is a grizzly man. He's 6'2". He's of German descent. He's a big guy, a bear, a grizzly bear. And he's using all his strength to just BAM! Into the back of your skull. And you don't die from that. You don't die from that.
Really?
Most people don't die from getting hit that hard, because, your skull's pretty thick.
Yeah.
So, well, that ain't going to solve anything.
I do have a hard head.
That ain't going to solve anything. Well, Kate Bender's sitting right... Well, actually, Kate Bender will be on that side, right? He hit your head, boom. And then immediately you slump forward because you just had the shock of your life.
Yeah.
So Kate Bender, the whole time she's been fondling this knife, this razor sharp knife with this rusty old handle, this wooden handle with this like rusty looking blade.
That's nice.
The whole time she's been thumbing through that thing. As soon as you slump forward, she grabs the back of your hair and she pulls your head like that. And she takes this knife and she slits from your your left ear all the way to your right ear in a split second. Right after you were hit, she has a knife to your ear and she literally just cuts
your whole little throat open.
Cut your entire throat on. Without you even, you're still delirious from the hammer that just hit you.
Right.
You weren't dead from the hammer. You're definitely dying now that you got your throat cut. And like a pack of wolves, this is what makes the family so demented. Like a pack of wolves.
No. No.
No. It's no cannibalism, I promise.
Okay.
They found the bodies, remember? Maybe it's a bad analogy. Like a pack of fiends, they immediately rush over because number one, they don't want all your damn blood to be, pulling up on their wood, on their floor. They got to clean that. They don't want to be spotted. They don't want someone to come in and be like, what's all that blood there? They're going to do this quick. And it's real quick. They got this to a science. That's why she's like an entrepreneur. She's always making her system more effective. Yeah. So Pa hits you, boom, back of the head. She grabs your hair, jerks your head back, cuts you from ear to ear. Then you fall on the floor. The chair goes with you. You fall like spazzing out. The whole family, all four, John Jr., Ma, Pa, and Kate, are down there, and they're ripping off everything, your watch, your whatever, your jewelry, your ring. They're looking for coins, cash. They're getting you dry, everything you got. And within literally 15 seconds, they open that strap of that trap door and they push you down in there so you don't pull up on their floor. And either they take you out then, it depends, because you're in the open prairie. You don't want people to see you dragging a dead body out. But the only point they got the cellar is so you don't pull up their floor. It's your blood.
So they throw the bodies in there so that
exactly.
Blood seeps into the soil.
Exactly.
And then they take the body out.
Which is why there was so much dirt that was blood red, because it was blood red. But sometimes they take you out immediately and throw you in a shallow grave that may have already been dug by John or Pa. Sometimes they have to wait till nightfall. You don't want people. There's a lot of people traveling on this trail. This is it's a busy trail. There's a lot of homesteaders. Remember, there's 1.6 million people taking advantage of this offer. It's a lot going up this trail. They don't want people to see. That's why they're way in the back. So sometimes they got to go out on nightfall, drag you out from the bottom of the house, and then bury you. But they all have that. And that's why I'm saying, if you see a skull today, if you're ever around that rest stop and you see a skull or you see some bones coming out and you look at the back of that skull, if they got that mark on the back of their skull where it's caved in, it looks like a hammer, it's probably a bender victim.
Wow.
So, Jen, don't you think it's interesting? So she's a type of femme fatale, in her own way, female serial killer. She's pretty crazy, yet she's a former prostitute. And John, you mentioned at one point she's a kind of man-hater. Do you think that the rules are on purpose, that she's just only going after men who ride alone? I know it's only females that wouldn't ride alone per se, but it seems like there's some deep-seated hatred of men and some psychology shit going on there.
Well, it would be reasonable to think that, she's trying to get some sort of revenge on the victims, by the way that she's killing them, by some sort of repressed, she very well may have repressed being raped, or something that may have happened in when she was back in New York, it's very possible that she's using her past experience just to try to make a point. I mean,
yeah, especially if she was kind of raped to the point of almost dying.
Yeah,
you know?
That's speculation.
Well,
Point out that is very likely that happened, but I only saw one account of that.
Although I mean, as you know,
but it's interesting. It's it's all men. It seems very targeted. It's interesting that she has help from people, that she's accepting help from Ma, and John.
Well, you'll never find a female writer during that time writing alone.
Right. That would never happen.
But there was a victim that was unearthed that had his genitals mutilated. And the story behind that
sucks for him.
Is that it was a really well-dressed man.
Well, he doesn't need it now, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I believe his last name was Jones. That may not be accurate. I have to check on that. But a well-dressed man comes into the tavern, and he's wearing brand new cowboy hat. He's wearing brand new Stetsons. He's talking about investments and all this stuff. He's showing off. He's showboating. He's a younger guy. And Kate, she went through all her rules, but I mean, she knew this guy wasn't. I mean, you don't come in brand new Stetson with a brand new Stetson and brand new cowboy boots. You're out in the middle of the prairie. What's this guy doing? But I mean, it's still those boots were so expensive. He had to get them from somewhere. So he may have been a train robber or what have you. But the story goes, he was a victim, and when they, like a pack of wolves, ravaged him, they found a total of 40 cents, which is nothing, on his person. And he is the one she immediately, because this is a long process. I mean, they could get caught for doing this. Right. So every victim has to be carefully planned. And if they don't make money off this, because they're doing this for profit, I mean, most likely they're probably getting 10, I mean, in today's world, not saying we should do this, but, they're getting 10, 20,000 per person. And it's estimated that they probably left town with like up to 500 grand from doing this.
Wow.
So they're very calculating on who they rob. And she lost not lost her temper, but she went into another state, and she took that knife that she cuts people's, necks with, and she stabbed his genitals multiple times. A lot. Like in a rage. So that may be a psychological issue. But she was a very interesting person. Number one, she was very powerful, and even the whole family, she ran the whole family. She was the leader, the ringleader.
Well, they weren't even a family, but she was definitely the alpha.
Yeah, there's one account I read. Keep in mind, Pa Bender was not related to Kate, but he was a raging alcoholic, and with that comes a lot of tension.
Right.
And people like that can make mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one report that he was at a local creek, Drum Creek. He got into a verbal argument with a fellow fisherman, and killed him. Dumped his body in the creek.
Right on the spot?
Right on the spot. Kate, the ringleader, was pissed, I mean, she was really mad, and his tension would get so out of whack that, and keep in mind, they weren't related, she would take him out back to the barn and satisfy him.
Wow.
Sexually, to get his tension under control, once or twice a month. And that was kind of like his motivation for being, not blowing their cover. You know what I'm saying? Because they needed him. He was a big guy.
He was the muscle.
He was the muscle. Him and John Jr. Like they Kate and her mom couldn't do this by themselves.
Right.
So they had to keep him under control. So she would go out to the barn with old Pa Bender and take care of him.
Ew.
So, but yeah, she was a very deranged girl. When Colonel York went in there, and after the investigation, and they unearthed 11 bodies total the second day, numerous body parts, and inside the cabin. And this doesn't mean she was deranged, but there was the zodiac. He saw the zodiac symbols, the 12 symbols, and they were etched into the floor. And he didn't know he's staring at them for hours. And he didn't know what they were, right? And I don't even know really what they are. But I mean, she was really into the astrology, numerology stuff. So,
but can we just go, rewind a little bit? So you said that Colonel York was there 18 hours ago.
I was just going to go there.
With his brother?
Yes.
So,
No.
By himself.
Colonel York was there by himself. Okay, let me. That's
so
a good
why
point.
was he there? So he went to go look for his brother there the next day, but why was he there in the first place?
Okay, Colonel York goes to look for his brother, and his brother, Dr. York, went to look for his friend that didn't come back. Dr. York didn't come back. Now Colonel York goes out by himself, and what he does is he retraces the routes, kind of like you would today, and he knocks on every cabin door. He talks to every passerby, everyone. And what he noticed is that everyone up until the Bender house had seen his brother. Everyone past the Bender house, never seen him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. And not only that.
Interesting.
Not only that, when this is the reason why he would have been there sooner. And if he had the men at the time, this story would have ended. If he had the men at the time, they would have arrested him. But he knew he couldn't
take on 4
He
people.
couldn't take on 4 people.
He would have been another missing person.
Yeah.
He would have been a missing person. But when he was coming out, when he was going up to the cabin the first time before he kicked it in, this is 18 hours before, he's by himself. He's doing his routine questioning. He didn't think anything of the Benders at the time.
Right.
It's just another stop. He demounts his horse and he talks to the Benders. And he doesn't. I mean, he was a war veteran,
right?
So he's got this sense of. He's got this sixth sense of his surroundings. He knew something was not quite right. And Kate Bender kept trying to flirt with him and get him inside, and he just wouldn't go inside. He didn't go inside at all. He was like, no, I don't want to go.
So he was a missed victim, a missed opportunity for them.
Exactly. They would have killed him. Not because he broke the rules, but because they had to. Like Dr. York, they had to kill him because he was suspecting the Benders.
Right. So they knew as soon as he left and didn't come inside, they had to piece the fuck out.
So Colonel York, he's like, no, I don't want to go inside. He looks over his right shoulder, does a double take. And you know those horse saddles? You can see those horse still see the horse kind of where you mount your horses?
Right.
Yeah.
There was a saddle there.
But no horse.
There was a saddle but no horse.
So what did they do with the horses, though?
He recognizes that saddle. That's his brother's saddle.
Wow.
That's his brother's saddle. His brother was a prominent doctor. The horse he rode was a fine mare, what they call it. It was a nice horse with a nice saddle. That was his saddle. He knows that saddle. It's his brother. It's like your car.
Right.
It's like your car nowadays. Your brother would know what car you drove.
Right.
My brother would know it's the same thing.
It's like a license plate.
Exactly. He knew it right off the bat. He turns back to Kate and it's like, and keep in mind, Pa's not speaking anything. He doesn't know English. Ma's pretending she doesn't know English. And John is just somewhere else. He's like, what? Whose saddle is that? That's my brother's saddle. And then Kate's like, well, your brother was here. Your brother was here, but he left, and he probably got killed by the Indians.
Now, did she tell him previously that he wasn't there?
Yeah, they didn't know him. But now she does know him. Because he knows. He knows. And then luckily he didn't go inside because Pa would have killed him.
Wow.
I mean,
he's lucky he managed to escape.
Look at a guy like me. Like I'm 5'10". I'm pretty decent build, right?
Right.
190 or whatever. Pa was probably 6'2", 6'3", probably pushing 250, 260. You can't shoot that guy enough. And he's drunk, and he's angry, and he's bitter. And he is looking to kill because there's a point where you already made enough money. So why do you keep killing people? You got to satisfy urges. They think Pa was...
I mean, do you really need equivalent of $500,000?
Exactly. You got to satisfy those urges, that old angry man. And he gets those urges by killing people. So
Or getting blown by his stepdaughter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And which is another reason why her mom was pissed, because he didn't get it in from her, only the daughter. But so he sees that and he rides back, man, as fast as he can. Because he knows, but he knows he can't do anything by himself. He gets his posse. As soon as dawn hits, he's back. 18 hours later, where our story started, gone.
Wow.
Vanished. And to the fact where I was talking about earlier, pisses people off because you don't know how it ended.
No one's like spotted them since then.
And there hasn't been any other like victim or anything like that.
Plenty of spottings.
Really?
One spotting in Paris. Kate Bender found in Paris. Kate Bender found in Mississippi. Kate Bender found in Africa. All over the place, right?
Well,
this is a major news story.
Well,
major.
That's what makes, photography such a major part of this story. If we didn't have, if this is when, when, like, how would
there's
people
one surviving picture of Kate.
Now, how would they know?
Can we see?
Yeah, can we
I
see?
have it.
Because, you know what I mean? Like, how would they know exactly who it is? Like,
because, oh, sorry, to cut you off.
No, that was a thought. I was done.
Because this, Jen and Nicole, this was more than just a simple crime. This made headlines. In fact, most of the newspapers I read weren't even from Kansas. This is a very small town. Very small. Like one horse town. It still is today. This made newspapers across the world. This was the biggest story probably that had ever hit. This was huge. And the fact that the Bender family vanished, swallowed by the prairie, whatever, gone, disappeared into thin air, still drives people crazy. Because with that amount of press and the reward, they had $5,000 on their head, which calculates today probably $100,000 more. Plus an extra 1,000 that Colonel York threw in. There were so many. There were vigilante businesses that formed specifically to find the Benders. There were posses from every state, every sheriff, every deputy, everyone in the nation, not just in Kansas. Everybody were looking for these guys, and they left in 18 hours and were freaking gone.
Now, I wonder if they split up.
That's a very, very popular theory. So they did find, there's a county called Thayer County. They found the wagon of John. They thought it was John and Kate's wagon. It was empty. Couple scenarios here. They could have been murdered by vigilantes, because keep in mind, there was a reward for Kate. Okay, here's the thing. If you're a vigilante and you find Kate Bender, the most notorious serial killer in the world, and she has $10,000 on her head, you'd turn her in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you?
Definitely.
Would you? Even
if it was $10,000 back then, I mean, I could use $10,000 today.
That's a lot of money, right? Yeah. Or would you kill her, search her body, and find $500,000 on her?
Ooh.
Right? That could have happened. That could have been a possibility. There could have been, and in fact, when I told you guys earlier that Little House on the Prairie, the actual show or movie, I didn't watch the show, was related to this. I forget the author's name.
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yeah, Laura Ingalls Wilder. She had a quote, and you can verify this. She said that her dad, I think it was her dad or her grandpa, was part of the posse that went out to find Kate Bender.
Wow.
Oh.
Because she was in that town. She was in that small town.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Little House on the Prairie.
So that's why we want to name it Little Slaughterhouse on the Prairie.
Yeah, I don't think I ever read that book. So
I think they stopped by the Benders Inn. I don't want to put I don't want to say that for a fact, though. I don't really know too much. I saw somewhere that they at least stopped by the end. I will tell you this, though. Like I said, it really drives people crazy of unanswered questions. In 1910, this is a while later, there was an elderly woman. This is speculation, too, but this has actually made news articles. A lot of newspapers talked about this because the whole time people were looking for these benders everywhere. And if they split up, who knows? I mean, they could have, a lot of people said in fact, a vigilante group arrested 2 women in Michigan, drug them back to Kansas because they looked like Ma and Kate Bender. They apprehended them, handcuffs, put them in Kansas in the courtroom, had the entire town come through the courtroom and identify them. They couldn't identify them. It was like half said it was, half said it wasn't. They had to let them go. Who knows, right? There wasn't detailed records back then. But the story that really made the news, I think it was 1910, maybe been a little later. There's a woman, kind of older woman, probably in her 60s, medical maybe. Problems. She was on her deathbed. Her neighbor, a good friend of hers, when you're about to die.
No, I've never been about to die.
Well, from what I hear, like people, you just want to get everything off your chest.
Oh, like a last rites type.
Last rites thing. So she had something to get off her chest. She wanted to come clean about the murders, some murders that she did in Kansas, and she described those murders in detail.
Whoa.
That may have been Kate Bender. Very possibly have been Kate Bender.
Where was she living?
She was in San Francisco, California.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you can still look her up. There's historians to this day that are still trying to link her, that elderly dying woman, to Kate Bender.
Now, what did the elderly dying woman go by at that time? What was her name?
The news article I'm reading now is from the Colorado Historic, it's from the Montrose Daily Press, Volume 2, number 246, dated May 5th, 1910. Headline, Kate Bender died today. San Francisco woman says she had lived a double life for the past 30 years, declares her identity on deathbed. Crimes of the notorious Bender family kept the whole West in the state of excitement for months 30 years ago. Family kept a murder farm which rivaled that of Miss Guinness. Or Miss Guinness, I don't know her name. Special to the press, San Francisco. Did Kate Bender, one of the arch fiends of the century, pass away in the city this morning? Or did the delirium of death cause a fanciful delusions to cloud the last moments of an ordinary, innocent woman? What was crazy about this case, Jen and Nicole, is it caused such a frenzy in every newspaper in the world, literally, that people were coming from all over the country to try to identify loved ones that had... Oh my God. Exactly. So the crazy thing is, guys, if your loved one was missing, right? You can't identify these people. You would go down and you would dig through these dead bodies to see if they were your loved one because you want closure, right? So this is what was going on. You see all these town people? They were looking through these bodies, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. There were hundreds and hundreds of sightings. Kate Bender's here. Kate Bender's there. They vanished in thin air. No one knows how they did it. There's speculation that there was a bunch of gypsy groups around the town. There's speculation that they went with them. There's other speculation that they went down to Texas because at the time Texas was, mad at the United States, right? Because it was still its own thing. And so you would almost have diplomatic immunity or whatever there in Texas.
Right.
There's speculation that they got adopted by the Indian tribe. There's speculation that they got killed by vigilantes and they took the money. I mean, everyone says, and it became such a thing where everyone claimed to have killed the Benders. There were so many vigilantes says, I killed him.
Just wanting fame, I'm sure.
Just wanting fame. And it was a media sensation. It's one of the first, right? And especially you have pictures. They never had pictures.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have a family with a murder farm. You can't make that up.
Quote unquote family.
Right.
A slaughterhouse on the prairie, man. A murder farm,
Crazy.
right? Yeah, I do want to say that for all you ghost lovers, I know you like the ghost, Jen. There are ghost hunters that go and visit the area and claim apparitions, but you're not going to see the benders, right? So you're not going to see the really evil ghost.
Well, sure, because Kate left there, right?
They all left
unless
there.
they
Yeah,
go,
unless they came back as
I don't know.
I'm not 100% into the ghost thing, but there are ghost people that say they see. But think about the really crazy thing is this family was killing people in their house for 3 years and living in a small room with
Where
dead
it
bodies.
smells.
So
I
if
can't
you-
even imagine.
If you
that.
believe in ghosts, those ghosts were living with that family. So what does that do to your psychology when you're Kate Bender and you've been killing people
Well, she was clearly a fucking
and
whack job.
I mean,
dumping them?
Well, there's a difference between, psychopaths and sociopaths, right? Like the psychopaths don't really know that what they're doing is wrong, but a sociopath doesn't really care.
What do you think she was
Well,
from the story I gave you?
I think that it's clear that, I mean, from the story that you gave me, obviously I wasn't there 200 years ago or whatever, 150 years ago. But it sounds to me like she made a distinct choice.
Yeah, it sounds like she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
You know, they had a very
Systematic.
it was methodical, it was diabolical, it was a way to get quick money, if you will, especially
Yeah.
with the way that they killed the people. Very businesslike. You know, it was
Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it was down to business.
it was
codes. Here's the criteria. Here's the code, and kill them.
Entrepreneurs.
Here's how we're gonna
she
kill
could
them.
she could essentially probably write a handbook on how to kill people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
if you were to open a business and be
Yeah.
like, "This is our policy."
A
this is
franchise.
a franchise.
Yeah.
A murder farm franchise.
So I mean, from my point of view, it doesn't sound like. I mean, the only thing that would it does from your background that you gave me, it doesn't sound like she had any, mental illnesses. But it's also coming from a time period where that wasn't really
Yeah,
a focus.
that's true.
It's coming from a time period where if you were mentally ill,
Yeah.
it was treated much differently than today. You don't just, you don't have the scientific you don't have the science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 1870s, you had early psychology, but nothing like it was today. People were just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
So we're thinking she's possibly early sociopath.
I would categorize her more of a sociopath than a psychopath without having the 100% background of her. Only because, it doesn't. The only thing that I could think of is if she started to develop this from maybe a post-traumatic stress disorder type of situation.
It could have been.
If that report of her being, especially as a prostitute, she's selling her body, right? Which, people are,
regardless of whether it was sexually traumatic, it's still a traumatic experience to be doing that.
exactly, exactly. So, I mean, PTSD could be a strong possibility for her, and people don't, people don't understand that. Even the people that suffer from that don't understand. Once you have that disorder, you're changed. It's not like something that you can just fix.
It's trauma, yeah.
So it could have stemmed from that, or who knows. So it's hard to say without having the scientific advances that we have today in the mental health system that we have today. It's hard to make a diagnosis, but it does sound it could go either way.